Welcome to this video from Shadowwood Carpentry about how to assemble and set up your B squared or B cubed top bar style beehive. Alright, so we have the pieces of the hive laid out here. You notice these are already painted. Normally I wait until after the hive is assembled for painting, but this is the hive that I collapse and reset up at all my shows, so it's already painted. Now to build the body, you're going to start with the bases here. This groove orients towards the inside, and you just take one of the side pieces here with the grooves also oriented towards the inside and fit it in. Then you'll take some of the pegs here and just hand pressure fit those in. Now for the bottom, the thickened part orients downward. And you just slide that into the grooves along the bottom, all the way up into the back of the hive. And then fit the other piece on. It's a little awkward, but you should be able to manage it. That's your base. Now this is just a dry fit. I haven't glued it yet. You're going to want to dry fit your hive together. Make sure you have all the pieces fitting together correctly before you start applying any glue. Now the lid, you have the logo on one side. You could orient that towards the outside, or if you don't like the logo, shame on you, but you could orient it inward. This little notch just fits right in here. And then I overhang the end over here and just bang that down. The other side. This piece should just freely slide in. Get held together with the pegs as well. Now for a mallet, I just use a small wooden mallet or rubber mallet. Two taps. I'm not gluing it yet, so it's not too tight. And there's your lid. Now if we bring our hive back, just fit right on top. And there it is. Okay, so you've dry fitted either your B squared or your B cubed model. Now you want to make things permanent. What I use to glue it together is Type-On 3. It's pretty strong stuff and it's water resistant. You don't need a whole gallon. I usually put it into a smaller condiment container. And you're also going to want some wood flour. Now wood flour is just sawdust that has been sifted. So you only have the fine granules so you get a flour-like consistency. Get yourself a disposable container and a silicone spatula or something, mix it up. Put in about a cup of wood flour and just keep adding glue and mixing it up until you have a slightly thinner than peanut butter consistency. And then you'll take that, put it in a Ziploc bag and cut off the corner, and then you can squeeze it out like frosting. Now for the body, I always put a bead of glue on these three sections here of the side walls and then piece the hive together. Don't put any glue in the grooves for the base. If you ever get water in your hive, you want that water just to be able to flow out. You don't want it to pool in the bottom. So I don't bother gluing the bottom together. And then with the pegs, just put a little glue on the skinnier part of the peg on the bottom and then hammer it into place, and that glue will hold everything together. Now for the lid, similar, I put a bead of glue along this part of the lid, and then because the lid could have a little bit of a wiggle, I'll take a cereal box or a pizza box and wedge it underneath these parts here just to hold that down while the glue is dry. And then you should have your hive put together. Alright, so if you don't have access to a lot of sawdust for making your own wood flour, you can buy wood flour. I've seen it on Amazon. And you can also use like a liquid nails product instead. Just be careful not to use any silicone or acrylic base because your paint won't adhere to that when you're painting your hive. Okay, so I have a lid here to a B-cube model. After you've glued together your hive, you could take the extra material you have in here, the extra wood putty, and put some tape over that corner, and this will keep, so you can reuse it. After your lid has dried, there's one extra step, and that is to seal up all the crevices so that it's watertight. So I take your wood putty and extrude it into all the crevices, and then come back with, this is a caulking tool, where you just run that along and make a nice bead. Let that sit for about 10 to 15 minutes, and it starts to harden up, and then come along with an extra bead of just glue, and then glaze the whole top over with that glue. And what that does is as the wood putty dries, it is going to shrink a little. And without this extra layer of glue, it'll tend to split or crack. But with that extra glue, it makes it more mobile and it just kind of sucks into the crevice. Again, all that isn't necessary if you're using a liquid nails instead. And that should seal up your whole hive and get it ready to be painted. Now, when it comes to painting, for the lid, you could paint the whole lid because the bees never come in contact with it. But you could also just paint the top, the corners, the face, and leave this inside part here raw. Now for the hive itself, you want to paint the whole outside of the hive, but not the inside. All this area is the living space for the bees. It shouldn't come in contact with any sun or moisture, and you don't paint that. Now, as far as paint goes, I like to paint the lid with an oil base paint. I usually go with white. And for the body, I like to use a polyurethane or a varnish. I've never seen any damage to the bees using paint, but some people like to go the old natural route. This B-cube model is actually made from marine grade plywood. If you're not going to paint your hive, I definitely recommend getting the marine grade plywood. It'll last longer. And you also might do some research. You might find that there are some natural oils that you could apply to the wood to increase its longevity. After you've painted your hive, make sure to let it dry completely. Give it a few days. And while that's happening, you can prepare your frames. Now, this is the top bar frame from a B-squared model. And here is our hexagonal top bar for our B-cubed model. And the goal here is to take your beeswax and apply a film of that wax onto the top bar frame. Now, there's two ways to do that. One, you could use your wax as a crayon and just really rub it on there good, and then come back with either a hair dryer or a heat gun and just get that hot enough that you see it to start to melt. And then you could set that aside and let that cool. Another way to do it is to get an old pot from a thrift store and to melt your wax down completely, then take a small 1/4 inch chip brush and paint it on. You're not trying to paint the whole thing. You can see here in our B-cube model, we've only got about 1/4 inch on each side, and we left off about 1 inch clear on each end there. And what this does is it really just primes these frames so that they're ready for the bees to start building comb on it. And if you're trying to attract a bee swarm into your hive, this really juices up the hive for those bees to find it and want to settle in. After you've painted your hive, you could finish it off by stapling the screen on the back of the air vents and installing the queen excluders.
These are nifty because right now I have them open. But say you needed to move the hive. You could switch it over here to the screen. Or say you just captured a swarm hive. You can move it over to the queen excluder. That would keep the queen from being able to leave. And after about 2 weeks, when you see bees coming in and out with pollen on their legs, you know that they've established in the hive, and you can switch it over to being open. And this hive, as you can see, is already up and running. I'd also like to note that it's nifty to set the hive up on top of some concrete blocks. That keeps the hive from sinking into the dirt and keeps water from wicking up into the wood.